Peace, peace, peace for the meditation goddess. I wanted to make this video about children watching domestic violence. It had been on my mind recently, and then I also just watched a video about these children who are just, reliving the story of before their dad killed their mom. And thank God my story is not to that extent. My father didn't kill my mom. However, I saw a lot of things that a child should never see. And I'm making this video for the woman who may be staying in a domestic violence relationship. And I know men also go through domestic violence relationships, but that's not my point right here. I want to make this video for the woman who may be staying in a relationship for whatever reason, and I want to give her the perspective of her children. So I'm 33 years old now, and as far back as I can remember, like, I don't remember how young I was, but maybe I'm sure from the time that I was born, I was in the presence of my dad actually beating my mom. And like literally beating my mom with a fist, with bleeding, with crying, with swelling. And we saw violence all the time. Now, my dad was not one. He never abused us as children. The extent of his abuse to us was us watching him be abusive to my mom, or maybe yelling at us, or maybe using profanity. But he never hit. It's weird to say because his love for us showed. He would never, abuse us. If we ever got any type of physical discipline, what we call a whooping, it was because, in normal situations where a child would get a whooping. It was never a situation where we were just being beaten for no reason. So, anyway, in my household, it was my mom who received the abuse, and we had to watch it. So my mom would just be, I think it was like every other day where she would have like be physically beat. But for me, I can't remember who it was the other day, Will Smith, he described his mom being abused by his dad, and he described the three characteristics of him and his siblings. So all of them had different ways where they would handle it and process it, and that was so true to me because we were the same way. Like, it was three of us in the household. My sister was a fighter. Like, she was gonna try to help my mom, and she was always the fighter. She was also killed in a car accident back in 2006. But she was the fighter. She was an arguer. She didn't care. She was going for it. He described like having a fight or flight, and I was the one who I just kind of screamed and cried and really had to fit and hope that my screaming and crying would make him stop. And my brother kind of just, went into a shell. Like, he was just quiet, and he just watched, and he just listened. And so that was so interesting to me that he said that he and his brothers and sisters also went through a thing of they having their different ways that they, went through the process. So anyway, one of my things I would do was I would sit in my mom's lap to keep from him hitting her. And remember, I said that my dad never abused us. So I knew that if I was sitting in her lap, he wouldn't hit her. He was, in my mind at that time, and remind you, this went on for the time that I was a little girl. But in my mind, I processed it in a way in which, even as a small girl, if I sat in my mama's lap, he won't hit her. And so I would do that. That was my way of protecting her. I also just heard a girl on the video that I was watching. She said that she would try to do things to please her father just so he could be happy. I can remember doing that too. As I'm telling that, it reminds me of how I became this overachiever back then. Because I felt like if I were to make him happy, because he was always one that he was telling me how much he was proud, and I always felt like I was my daddy's favorite child, and so I felt like if I were overachieve, and that may have been why I was his favorite child, because I was always the one maybe trying to please him. Now that I'm processing it, it's amazing how you can get your healing through helping other people heal. So anyway, it was just a very traumatic time, like screaming, crying, I'm always watching my mom be physically abused. Now, for me, you have a lot of women that if they watch their moms be physically abused, that they'll feel like that's okay and they'll go into another physical abuse situation. That wasn't me. How I did, I overcorrected. I watched my mom be weak. I watched my mom be beat. And I decided that would never be me. So I became like, a man can't tell me nothing. No man in authority. If I ever had like a male boss, I was always passive aggressive to him, because in my mind it reflected what I had gone through as a child. No man is ever going to tell me nothing. No man never going to put his hands on me. I have put my hands on more men than they have put on me. And not in an abuse way, but I can remember some guy saying something about my brother, and I slapped him before I knew it. And so anyway, mine was not reflected like that. Part of my trauma was overcorrected. Now you got this woman who just don't have no respect for the black man because of what she saw. So anyway, also, I still know, I always tell people, I try to keep my energy clear because I can't take too much. Like, I'm that person, I don't like all that tension, that arguing, that cussing, that fighting. Like, it does something to my nerves. I shut down. I cannot take it. I tell people, I can't take too much. Don't give me too much. I don't like all that. And so anyway, also too, now I noticed that I used to do like this wringing of my hands when I was a little girl. Like, when I got nervous or scared of my parents were fighting, I would be screaming and crying and wringing my hands. I still do that now. Like, if something is on my mind, somebody got to really know me to know I'm doing this. Like, if something is on my mind, something is bothering me, something is, maybe I'm nervous about something, this is what I'm doing. And I can remember doing that as a little girl. My point of saying that is, excuse me, I'm picking up my daughter. Hello, good afternoon, thank you. You too. So my point of saying that is, you may be staying in a domestic violence relationship where your children is watching trauma, and maybe for whatever reason you don't realize that your children are being traumatized. For whatever reason, you may not know that. For whatever reason, you may be staying because your children are provided for. Maybe this man is the breadwinner. Maybe you just, your self-esteem is so low that you just feel like you'll never be able to find any type of other companionship, so you kind of just settle for this situation, or whatever, maybe out of fear, whatever reason women choose to say, I can't relate to that side of things. I've never been in a domestic violence relationship. I've never felt that feeling, so I'm not going to be judgmental of anybody that's going through that. However, I'm relating to the child in the situation, and I am begging you to see your child. I'm begging you to look in your child's eyes when they're crying or however they process. I'm begging you to have the conversation with your children. I'm begging you to look at the trauma that you're going to cause your children moving forward, and where God forbid, it's worst case scenario where they watch you be murdered or you get murdered in this situation, and then they have to deal with that trauma. But then you have people like me who dealing with their trauma in a different way. I'm still wringing my hands like that little girl when I get nervous. I still can't take much. I don't like all that screaming, hollering, and fussing, because it reminds me of my childhood. Different ways I'm still processing my trauma. I'm begging you to look at your child and say, I'm looking at you, and I'm going to create a good you. I'm going to create a healed you. I'm not creating a child that has to deal with trauma. Sometimes people deal with trauma to their death in later ages and stages. I'm not going to create a child that has to recover from my mess. I'm not going to make my child be 35, 40, 50 years old and still recover from my mess. I'm begging you to look at your child and take that and get the strength to leave. And I don't know if that makes sense for a lot of people, but for me, my children are my strength. My children are the reason I don't settle. My children are my strength. If I ever need strength, I'm going to look at my babies and I'm going to get it from them. So I'm begging you to use your children as your strength to do what you need to do, to get rid of your limiting beliefs, to stop believing that you can't have what you want to have, to stop standing in a situation because you believe you can't do better, to stop looking at your money and saying, I can't afford to leave. I don't care if you leave today and you don't have nothing but the clothes on you and your children's back. The universe, God, source provides. My approach would be, God provide for me and my children. I'm getting out of this and we gone. I don't care if we left walking. I don't care if we stole the car that he paid for. I don't care what it would have to be. And we would leave and we would allow the universe, God, source, or whoever to provide for us for and however, in whatever way it needs to provide, because that's where your faith got to come in at. That's where your faith and your strength coming from your children have to kick in. I'm sending this, and I want you, if you're a person that you know somebody who is going through this situation, if you will, please, 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 look at your children, allow your children to be strength, and then send this video to anyone you know who is dealing with a situation where they need to leave, they need to get out, but they don't have strength. Please send this video to them. I'm begging you to not allow your children to see your mess any longer. Because they're being affected in ways not only in their adult life, but they're being affected in their schooling. Your sons are taking on the idea that it's okay to abuse a woman. Your daughters are getting the mentality that it's okay for her to be abused. She's getting into sex earlier because she's looking for love. Different things are going to happen from that situation. I'm begging you to use your child as your strength and leave that situation, because you can. The universe, God, source will provide whatever you desire. But you have to have the strength. You have to have the mind. You have to have the faith that can happen for you. And I'm sending blessings to any mama who is in a domestic violence relationship and does not see her way out. I'm sending blessings to that child who is like me, like my brother, like my sisters, like Will Smith, like his siblings, like the children that I just saw in this other video that I just watched. I'm sending blessings to those people that they might be lifted and that they might be healed, because this is a major thing that's happening. This is a major thing. There ain't nobody talking about it, but these homes ain't as happy as they look. So peace and blessings to you and yours from the Meditation Goddess. I love you, and please share this video with anyone who may be going through a domestic violence relationship. Also, I'm new to this YouTube thing, but I would love if you would like and subscribe and hit the notification bell, because my content is something that you would want to see. Peace and blessings to you.